Welcome to the Brain Over Binge podcast, where you learn a simple, brain-based approach to ending binge eating. I'm Katherine Hansen, your host, and for those of you who are new here, I'm the author of Brain Over Binge and the Brain Over Binge Recovery Guide. Thank you so much for joining me today. Coach Julie is also here for this show to talk about consistency in recovery. If you're someone who will do well for a little while and then slip back into old behaviors, or you want to prevent that from happening, this episode is going to be very useful to you. Also, when it comes to consistency, my free resource, the Brain Over Binge Inspiration Booklet, is a great tool to use daily as you're deconditioning these old habits and building new ones. I created this free booklet to help you stay focused and motivated so that you can do the consistent actions each day that lead to healing. You can get the inspiration booklet through the link in the show description or on the homepage of brainoverbinge.com. And now we'll get into today's topic. Hi, Julie. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Catherine. So happy to be with you.
Yes, always great to talk to you. I love the conversations that we have. And today we're going to be talking about the magic of consistency during
Yeah.
recovery and just how you can help yourself be more consistent. So, Julie, can you go ahead and introduce this topic?
Yeah. I called it the magic of consistency, right? But it's really like the boring day-to-day actuality of consistency over time leads to the magic of recovery, I think is what I'd say, right? It's these things that we need to do regularly and consistently that maybe aren't so exciting and flashy, and I know we're going to go through them, but with those steps consistently over time, suddenly you're recovered, and there's the magic.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love the way you put that because there is no magic thing to do, right? That's going to magically cure you and make all your urges go away and make your eating just right. But if you do those kind of boring day-to-day things to help yourself along, that's where the magic happens.
Exactly, exactly. And unlike, diet programs that promise these quick fixes and can be a little bit like dopamine stimulating because you're all excited about some new strategy you're going to try, with recovery, it's this long-term over time, like months, not days over time, small daily actions that build up and then everything shifts imperceptibly almost, and yet everything shifts.
Yeah. And as we've talked about in our No Matter What podcast, which I'll link in the show description, you can make that decision and you can make that commitment to change, right? Like, we don't want to make you think change has to be this long term, drawn out thing. You can commit to it today and decide to not binge no matter what, decide to eat adequately no matter what. But in order to keep going with that, you have to do these consistent day to day actions. So, yeah, it's the decision that can be sort of instantaneous or that you can do right now, but to follow through and to be consistent, you have to keep doing the things that lead to recovery, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You make that decision in an instant, but then it's really following through with the work of recovery, right? Like that's the thing. Like, and it's nothing that we haven't mentioned again and again and again. And yet I think repetition is really, really valuable. And maybe people will hear things in new ways today. So, I mean, I'm going to start with the top of the pile. I always say this, adequate eating, top of the pile, right? Eating adequately, adequate meals at regular intervals throughout the day, right, is top of the pile because with adequate eating, then in between those adequate meals, it's an urge, right? And when you're skipping meals and restricting, you're surely going to put yourself at risk for binging.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that. Of course, in the brain over binge approach, when we talk about consistency, is with those two recovery goals, dismissing urges and eating adequately. And eating adequately is such a great place to start because if you're not doing that, everything else kind of falls apart. And I love your reminder that consistent eating, we talked about magic of consistency, consistently eating throughout the day is magic, right? It really
It is.
helps you stabilize everything. It helps stabilize your appetite. It helps your body to start to expect food, your body to be able to digest food, to use it for energy. And I also love your suggestion for people to kind of eat on a clock if that works for you. Of course, some people want a more flexible approach, and that's fine too. But when you know that your breakfast is coming, your lunch is coming, your dinner's coming, and snacks in between, if that works for you, then you know that in between it gives you that opportunity to dismiss urges, which is the other goal, and you can get consistent with doing that as well.
Yeah, and again, it is the magic because also, right, it's so calming to a body that's been used to restriction, walking around starving all the time, the trauma of all of that, the trauma of eating disordered behaviors on the body. So consistent, adequate meals, walking around knowing you're always going to be properly nourished going forward is magic. And it's so calming to the brain, the body, everything starts to resettle. Your neurochemistry settles, your physiology settles. It is magic. It is
Yeah.
magic. And it makes urges really very obvious and much easier to manage.
Yeah, that explanation of restricting and binging being a trauma on the body, I think it's really powerful. I heard you say that on a group call recently, and I think it's just something for all the listeners to take away is that when you restrict, you're putting your body in this survival state. When you binge, you're causing trauma to your body. You're giving it all this extra food that it has to somehow process. And we all know how physically sick that can make you. If you're purging, of course, that's a trauma. If you're overexercising, that's a trauma. So, yeah, your nervous system is always revved up. You're always feeling on edge. It's really just creating trauma in basically every cell in your body. So, that
Absolutely.
consistent eating, consistently dismissing urges, not putting your body through that, it just helps everything settle and you're able to heal.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not walking around in fight or flight anymore. So your amygdala is not firing. So you have greater access to your prefrontal cortex. You know, the brain needs fuel, the brain needs nourishment. And when you have access to your prefrontal cortex, you can get to the other goal of dismissing, or as I say, expecting and allowing urges consistently, right? Because doing that consistently, the magic of that is neuroplasticity, excuse me, right? It's like that's how the brain changes. That's truly magic. You
Yeah.
can change your brain. So again, like they all go together. It's so synergistic.
Yeah. I've had people in coaching talk about visualizing their brain changing. And I think that's a really cool concept that you could take away is that every time you dismiss an urge, you can kind of visualize your brain shifting in the direction that you want it to go. You can visualize your future self as that binge free version of you. It's just every time you dismiss an urge, see those pathways changing, see your brain
Exactly.
becoming the brain that you want.
Exactly. I always say it's like you're growing a tree from your lower
Hmm.
brain to your higher brain. And it's not comfortable, but like every time you do that, and I always say it's like, oh, good, I'm having an urge. This is my chance to change my brain. It's an opportunity,
Hmm.
but that requires the adequate eating. That requires not being in fight or flight. That requires having access to your prefrontal cortex so you know what's going on and you're not afraid of it because you know I'm going to eat soon. There's no restriction anymore. I'm going to be fine.
Yeah, and I think it also requires knowing that you're going to feel tempted to binge sometimes, right? As you're growing this new tree, as you talk about, or as you're creating those new pathways, the brain really wants to keep things the same. It wants to maintain habits. That's the universal pattern of the brain. Even if this familiar pattern is extremely painful, like we talked about, even if it's a trauma on the body, the brain still thinks you need it because you've done it so many times. So
Mhm.
if you commit to being consistent, there's going to be times that the brain's going to say, oh, it's not so bad. Oh, one more time won't hurt. Oh, it's fine. Like you have to really expect that. And that's part of the
Totally.
consistency is
Totally.
expecting that, knowing it's going to happen, and still following through with the actions that you know are going to lead to recovery.
Yeah, I mean, that is why I always say expect and allow. Be onto your brain. It's not like, surprise, I'm having an urge. Of course, you're
Mhm.
having an urge. You've had urges for how many days? You've been binging and doing whatever for how long? Of course, urges are going to arise. Of
Mhm.
course. No surprise there. Be onto your brain. We're talking months, not days,
Mhm.
right? 6 months to 9 months to a year, you can have urges. They're going to come. Nothing to fear because when you're consistently eating adequately and then consistently expecting urges to arise and allowing them to move through you, everything shifts.
Yeah.
The thing is that also the magic with the neuroplasticity is that over time, you start to take them less and less seriously. So they may arise, but you'll be like, oh, of course that's happening because I'm in a new context. I'm a little stressed out. My brain thinks I'm in danger, so it's throwing this out as a way to protect me. Or, you know, I'm around foods that I haven't had in a while, or I'm overstimulated, whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure. And something that also that's been coming up in coaching is I mentioned sometimes the urge or the binge will feel appealing. And sometimes you're actually going to feel like you want to follow it. And that's just been something that's been a theme, I feel like, in coaching recently is people say, but I feel like I want to in that moment. Well, that's the lower brain's job. That's how it creates motivation. That's literally how you're supposed to feel in those moments based on that primitive drive from your lower brain. So, expecting that there will be some moments when you actually feel like it's you that wants it, like it's
Right.
not separate from you. And the goal is to really get through those moments and celebrate yourself on the other side and realize, because you will realize it wasn't what you actually wanted. And you can either realize that after the binge or you can realize that after you've rode out the urge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's also just, again, firmly remembering, and there's the consistency also, that binging always and only makes everything worse. It's never what you really want. And even if the lower brain is trying to convince you with whatever permission giving thoughts it throws out in those moments to fit that scenario, because it will fit any scenario you're in, it's remembering, I never want this, and taking it one step beyond. How are you going to feel in an hour? How are you going to feel tonight? How are you going to feel tomorrow when you wake up? Remembering that, right? Making that question something that you ask yourself, like over and over again.
Mhm. Yeah, it's recognizing that the feeling of wanting doesn't necessarily line up. And usually, when it comes to binging, it does not line up with what you actually truly want with your higher self.
Yep. Yep. And remembering there are a lot of things, like there are a lot of things that I want that I don't act on.
Yeah.
A lot,
Yeah.
and that's just the truth of it. We don't always have to feel like it.
I think that's such a powerful part of consistency. When we talk about any habits that you're trying to create, and you hear that like out in the self-improvement world, and people say, like, you can do things without feeling like it. It's just a big
Absolutely.
part of being consistent with anything. Like you go to work without feeling like it. So, yeah, just not always expecting yourself to
Yeah.
feel like it.
Yeah, I mean, when my alarm goes off, I often don't feel like getting out of bed, but
Mhm.
I like my paycheck, so I get out of bed and I go to
Yeah.
work, right? And I'm always glad I did. I never regret that, right? There's so many things, so many examples. I'm sure everybody can think of them. All
Yeah.
right, so another thing that is really part of the magic of consistency, and this is a hard sell, but it's removing weight from the equation. It is critical to recovery, critical. It is the thing that gets in everybody's way that I see over and over and over again because there is a reluctance to eating adequately because of weight. But I need to lose weight first. I can't eat adequately until I can't, there that constant theme. And the thing is that if you have been binging, if you have been restricting and binging, if you've been restricting, binging, purging, any of those things, and you have extra weight on your body with consistency over a long time, eventually you will land where you're meant to be. That may not be the skinniest you've ever been in your life because maybe you were weight suppressing, but your body will land where it's meant to be. But you have to take it out of the equation in order to truly heal.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful thing and a contrast to what you hear out in the dieting world, right? Quick fix, it's going to fix you right away. You're going to lose all this weight rapidly. But that leads to inconsistency, right? That leads to that yo yo dieting, dropping weight, gaining it all back with binging, gaining more weight than you started. So that's the inconsistency we want you to get rid of when it comes to weight. We want that consistent, soothing, healing nourishment to your body.
Exactly, exactly. And the beauty of that, the beauty of that is you get out of diet brain and you move into this life focused brain where food's part of it, but so is everything else. Family, travel, music, adventure, whatever, projects, new jobs, all those things. And the thing is, it's about visualizing yourself walking around in a world where you never go hungry again, but you're also never trying to clean up the mess, the physical and psychic mess of a binge again either. Right? It's just this even, steady state where you nourish yourself, you love your food, and you love your life.
Mhm.
And again, it's that leap of faith. If I take weight out of the equation and I focus on all the non-weight benefits of living binge free, and I keep reminding myself that my priority is healing, then everything shifts.
Yeah, I love that reminder about life focus because that could be a huge part of consistency to continuously redirect your focus to your life when your brain wants to be like, oh, but you need to lose weight. Oh, but you should diet. Oh, but you should binge, right? Like your brain is going to pull you back to these old habits, like I talked about before. Even though the familiar is painful to you, your brain still will try to pull you back there because of habit. So it's when your brain tries to pull you back there, you consistently redirect. What else is important to me? Like you always say, Julie, if this moment isn't about food, what do I want it to be about? And focus
Yes,
there.
yes, yes. And of course, your brain's going to go to weight. So don't get upset with yourself when your brain goes there. It's about saying, and I'm not focusing on that right now. I'm healing. I'm nourishing myself well. I am prioritizing recovery. I'm prioritizing healing. And what is better because of that? Because I didn't binge today, I get these non-weight benefits immediately. Write them down. Notice them every single day with consistency. Really savor them. Is your mood better? Is your energy better? Is your sleep better? Is your digestion better? Do you have better productivity? Are you coming up with new and creative ideas? Were you present for your family? Do you have better finances? What is better because you didn't binge today? There are infinite things that improve, and you get those things immediately. Now, that's instant gratification.
And I think something that is interesting about being consistent with recovery is it really allows you to be more consistent in the rest of your life. When I was struggling with restricting and binging, I was so inconsistent with my life. I mean, there was one day I would be cleaning up my whole apartment, cleaning up all the food wrappers, saying, I'm never going to do this again. I'm going to focus on whatever I need to focus on and like doing well for a few days. And then I was back to binging and I was back to, ignoring my friends, ignoring my responsibilities, not, engaging the way I needed to engage it when
Yes.
I was in college. Like, so I was such an inconsistent person because I was constantly overrun by these urges. And I think when you are able to heal, when you're able to eat adequately, when you're able to dismiss urges, you're able to show up with consistency in your job, in your career, as you're managing your finances, in your relationship. So it really just, yeah, helps you bring that consistency to every level of your life.
I love that. I love that. I always say it's the tip of the iceberg, right? Recovery is the tip of the iceberg. Everything else shifts, everything. And these are transferable skills. And it's also, it absolutely, it transfers into every other area of your life. And, integrity is my number one core value. And living in that life of binging, it's so out of integrity and just as you said, missed work, missed appointments, hiding, isolating, all of it, lying. I mean, just lost money, lost time. It's that vortex of I don't know where I went. Where did I go? It's like you just disappear. So absolutely, it's so true. And again, it compounds. It compounds. In the lesson I did with the group, I mentioned two books, The Slight Edge and The Compound Effect, because the value of doing these little tiny things every day, and I think in Atomic Habits he mentions it as well, but these things they build over time and it's exponential. It is exponential. So, it's not just about I don't binge today, I get these non-weight benefits. It's also I don't binge today, I get these life benefits that are going to grow and grow, and I have no idea what I'm capable of.
Yeah, because when you're consistent at showing up for your life, amazing things can happen, right?
Yeah,
And we're saying consistent with the rest of your life. We're not saying perfect. You're not going to show up as a perfect person, but when you show up
exactly.
consistently, you get to be your authentic self. You get to make mistakes. You get to learn from your mistakes. And yeah, it's just that realization that you're not going to be perfect, but you can be consistent.
Absolutely. I love that. I think that's a great place to kind of land the plane, you know, that like it's like all of these choices add up and it's never about perfection because perfection is unattainable, right?
Yeah.
It's about expecting and allowing yourself to be a perfectly imperfect human, but building trust through small, consistent actions. You overeat a little bit, no big deal. Right back to adequate eating. That's the thing. Right back to, okay, that happened, good, expect and allow urges, keep going forward.
Yeah, I love that. So really, this has been amazing. Thank you for all this about consistency. And I know you have a free call coming up, so I want people to learn about that because that's the way you can kind of get started down this road of being consistent. So can you tell the listeners about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's my pleasure. Every other month, I like to do a free call for anyone who's interested in getting some extra support. So it is on Saturday, March 29th at 2 p.m. Eastern. I was checking my calendar. And I will be there and I will be happy to have anyone who wants to come get some coaching, learn about working through these things we've been talking about today. It will be really great.
Yeah, Julie, thanks for sharing that. The link for the free call to join will be in the show description. All you need to do is click on that Zoom link and you'll join, and it's totally free. And you can learn about the group. And like Julie said, it's just a really amazing way to get support, to get encouragement, to get some motivation as you're building your consistent habits.
Amazing.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Catherine. So good to be with you.
Again, you can find the Zoom link to join Julie's free call in the show description, and that's on March 29th from 2 p.m. until 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also in the show description, you can check out the other Brain Over Binge resources, including one-on-one coaching with me or Coach Julie, group coaching, and the self-paced online course that is less than $20 per month. I appreciate you listening today, and I hope you'll join me again for the next episode. As you pursue recovery with consistency, I want to encourage you and remind you that you have the power to change your brain and live a binge-free life. The Brain Over Binge podcast is produced and recorded by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC. All work is copyrighted by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC, and all rights are reserved. As a disclaimer, the host of the Brain Over Binge podcast are not professional counselors or licensed healthcare providers, and this podcast is not a substitute for medical advice or any form of professional therapy. Eating disorders can have serious health consequences, and you are strongly advised to seek medical attention for matters relating to your health. Please get help when you need it, and good luck on your journey.